Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Best Practices for Migrating to Magnolia 5. We're glad you could join us. I'd like to introduce today's speakers. First of all, Samuel Schmidt is Technical Account Manager here at Magnolia, and Nicolas Barbet is Senior Consultant, and both are experts in migration. The agenda briefly, we will first of all cover why you should consider making the move to Magnolia 5 in the first place. We will look at how we can help you navigate this process. We will have an overview of the migration process in general, as well as our recommendations and best practice. And we will break the process down into two main areas. First of all, migrating from Magnolia 4.4 to 4.5, and finally from 4.5 to Magnolia 5. The reasons for doing so will become clear as we go through the webinar. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, Samuel Schmidt. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So before having a look at the migration process, why should you move to Magnolia 5? To take advantage of the latest feature. You might know that Magnolia 5 is coming with a new interface. It allows you to create and manage content on the tablet just as easily as on the desktop. A new app framework is also here. Integration becomes easier. You can integrate your selection of best-of-breed tools seamlessly in the Magnolia backend. Collaborate with the Pulse and organize your work with a favorite. A new REST API allows you to manipulate content through a web API. You can create, read, update, and delete nodes in the JCR. OpenWFE has been replaced by GBPN. It's an opportunity to take advantage of a powerful workflow engine. New features are coming with Magnolia 5.3. Personalization. You could create personalized content, provide variant of pages for specific segments. New feature in the DAM. So two things. You could integrate easily assets from other systems like SharePoint, Dropbox, or Flickr into Magnolia, and also expose content from the DAM to external system. The last point, JCR Agnostic Content App. You could integrate and manage external content from various data sources in a content app. Navigate with our expertise. Our team of consultants is ready to support your migration project. The objective of the migration audit is to explain the migration and to identify any potential pitfalls or issues related to your project. With the migration assistance, our consultants will support you and guide you during the migration project. If you are interested by one of these services, contact us. Magnolia Conference is the only place to meet all Magnolia developers. Something new this year, we will have a workshop day. Register now for the migration workshop that will take place on the 24th of June. Use the code migration-webinar-10 to get 10% discount. And to finish, free resources are available on our websites. You can visit our documentation site and find all the relevant information about migration process. A hands-on migration exercise is also available. You can learn the process as you migrate a real project. Visit the Magnolia Academy and get additional resources such as videos explaining each step of the process. So now I will hand over to Nicolas Barbet, our migration expert that will explain you the migration processes.
Thank you, Samuel. So in the following slides, we will see a quick overview of the migration process as well as some recommendations, and we will look into the migration process into the details. So first, a migration overview. As you can see in that slide, the migration process can be split into two distinct processes. The first one, a migration from Magnolia 4.4 to 4.5, and the second one from 4.5 to 5. Some features in Magnolia 4.5 and 5 will have an impact on your migration process. For instance, on Magnolia 4.5, the new security layer as well as the deprecation of the content API and some new concepts introduced in the SDK and the templating engine will have an impact on your migration. In Magnolia 5, the replacement of the DMS by the DAM, as well as the data module deprecation and the new layout of dialogues will have a clear impact on your migration. Before starting to detail the process, first some recommendations. We suggest you to clean and reduce the size of your database. You can remove all obsolete content and try to identify any duplicated information. If you have an information located in an external system, you can try to remove those data and reconstruct them at the end of the migration. Reducing the size of your database will reduce the risk of the migration as well as the time needed for that migration. When you test your project, we suggest you to build a test repository. This test repository can be made of, for instance, an instance of all your templates, components, and dialogues. Hence, it's very easy to test your website going through all the pages. You can also as well enrich this test repository very easily. Once you have done your migration project, we suggest you to test as soon as possible the migration on a real production database content. The migration process is based on version alerts. If you are not using version alerts, it's a good time to start using this feature correctly. When you test your project, we suggest you to crawl the website using a tool in order to automate this test and to track any stack traces or exceptions inside your log file. For your end users, Magnolia 5 is a big change. We suggest you to involve them upfront in the project. For instance, you can refine the initial requirements and define some acceptance tests. Those tests will guide you during the migration project. You can also run a full test campaign with your end users. It's a very convenient way for them to get a hand of the new Magnolia 5 before going live. And the last recommendation, read the migration logs. Those logs contain a lot of detail regarding the migration, and you can anticipate any issue. Now let's enter into the detail of the first migration from Magnolia 4.4 to Magnolia 4.5. What's new in Magnolia 4.5? New templating mechanisms have been introduced, such as the area and some tags and templating functions. We will see into the details in the next slide. We have also introduced a new SDK API, as well as replaced the content API by the Node API. And a new security layer has been introduced. Some new templating mechanism has been created, such as the concept of area. An area is a functional place inside your page, which defines which components can be instantiated. We have also introduced some tags such as CMS area and CMS component, which will render an area and a component inside your script, CMS edit that will render the edit bar, and CMS init that will create all the necessary tags to import style sheets and scripts. Some templating functions have been created, such as CMS function and SDK function, which can be used inside your template script to create automatically links or manipulate assets or GCR content. We have also made some structural changes inside the template definition. All those changes will have a clear impact on your template definitions and your scripts. You will have to migrate them. The SDK API has evolved in order to introduce those new concepts. In the following table, you can see for some example of the main classes which has been deprecated and the corresponding class that you have to use in the code. SDK util has also been deprecated and must be replaced by one of the templating functions that we have seen in the previous slide, SDK templating function and templating functions. When you want to manipulate the GCR content, we recommend you to use now the GCR Node API. The content API has been deprecated but is still available. This can be very useful if you want to postpone the migration of one part of your project which is using the content API. You can isolate this code and use some convenient methods to switch between those API. We are now using the default GCR security layer. This will have an impact on the configuration of your Jackrabbit. Now the migration process. As you can see, this process is made of several steps with an iterative loop in the middle. But before starting, please check that the following prerequisites are satisfied. First, your Magnolia instance must use at least the version 4.4.6. If it's not the case, you must upgrade to the latest version, which is today 4.4.13. This will have an impact on the go live. You will have to deploy two distinct works. The first one, which is an upgrade to 4.4.13, and the second one, which is a real migration to 4.5. The first step of the process is to update your project configuration. First, you must update your POM files. Set the Magnolia version to the latest one, which is today 4.5.17, and update your module dependencies as well as some artifact and group IDs. If you try to build your project, you will get some build errors. Those errors are expected since some code has been deprecated. So please update your code and build your project once again. It's a good idea to keep your module descriptor in line with your POM file, so please update them. And finally, you will have to add two tasks to your version handlers. The first one will migrate the content and is called Content Module Migration Task. And the second one will migrate the definition. If you are not using STK, please use Templating Related Module Migration Task. If you are using STK, please use Simple STK Related Module Migration Task. Now it's time to update your repository because of all those changes that we have made on the security layer. So please update your Jackrabbit configuration as well as your JAS configuration. You must also update the web.xml file. We provide some script that you can use to automate those modifications. This is recommended if you are using several instances. This will avoid you to make some mistakes. Now it's time to do backup of your repository. By repository, I mean the database, but also the Jackrabbit repository. And now you must use this backup for the rest of the process. Now you can start Magnolia. Magnolia will trigger the install and update procedure. And what's happening? Each Magnolia module is automatically migrated. Your module is partially migrated. Why partially? Just remember what we did on the previous steps. We have added a task in the version handler to migrate the content and another task to migrate the definition. Your template scripts are not migrated and are still using the old templating mechanism in 4.4. So you will have to migrate your template scripts. In order to do so, we provide a tool available in Magnolia, which must be run only once, and that will migrate your template scripts located inside your project. Just provide the path to the template scripts and run the tool. This tool will try to identify any well-known patterns in Magnolia 4.4 and convert them in the corresponding pattern in Magnolia 4.5. Unfortunately, nothing is magic. This tool will not be able to convert your own pattern, any specificities or customizations, so you will have to do this manually. We provide also a report which is automatically generated and will provide you some information of the migration. Now it's time to work on the delta. By delta we mean everything which has not been migrated in the previous steps. So you must iterate through every page of your test repository. That's why it's very important to use a test repository, because of course with a copy of the production database, you will have too much content to iterate. One iteration will cover one page. Open the page, identify what is broken. You have four possibilities. Either you will have to update the template script in your project, or you will have to update the configuration. Don't forget to replicate the fix in the version handler. You may have also to update the content. Don't forget to replicate the fix inside your version handler. Or the problem can come from your code, so update your code and save. Now it's time to test. Please, at this time, use your production content. Then you have different test strategies depending on how mature you are with the migration project. You can decide to just crawl automatically your website and compare the result between a Magnolia 4.4 and the Magnolia 4.5. You can also run some functional acceptance tests, or you can decide to run a full test campaign, which will involve all your end users. If you find any issue, please add this use case to your test repository and get back to step 5 to enrich the version handler. Now you are very close to the end. It's time to finalize the migration. Don't forget to update your bootstraps with the configuration and the samples, and then release your project. You are now ready to deploy your project on production. Now we will discuss about the second migration process from Magnolia 4.5 to Magnolia 5. What has changed in Magnolia 5 that will impact my migration? The first big change is the dialog definition. Then the DMS, which has been replaced by the DAM, and the metadata, which are now represented as a mixin. The content app now is a way to manipulate data and will replace the data module. We have also introduced a new workflow engine. Here you can see the dialog definition and some changes which have been done on the structure of the dialog definition. For instance, we have decoupled the actions from the definition of the form. If you are using Blossom, you will be also impacted by this change. The Digital Asset Management, or DAM, is a tool that is responsible for managing all your assets. This management is done centrally inside the DAM workspace. It means that you can't now, in Magnolia 5, upload an asset directly on a page. Regarding the existing content, you will have to migrate that content. You have two cases. The first one, you must move the content, the asset which are inside the DMS to the DAM. And you will have to move the assets which are uploaded on your web page to the DAM. Metadata now are represented as a mixin. Without entering into the technical details regarding what's mixin, please just keep in mind that the metadata node does not exist anymore and all the properties are directly located under the main node. This will have an impact for your GCR queries, so please check that those queries still works with this new representation. The data module has been replaced by the content app. The content app now is a recommended approach to manage the content. During the migration, the data module will create for you a content app for all your datasets. data types. So for instance, if you are using your own custom data types, you will have one content app for one data type. We have also introduced a new workflow engine, which is based on GBPM. If you are not using the default workflow, you will have to recreate this workflow from scratch using GBPM. We do not provide any tool to automatically migrate a workflow in the former way to this new GBPM engine. Now let's enter into the details of the migration project process. So this process is just like any standard Magnolia upgrade with three main steps. One is the update of the project, then to complete the version handler with some migration tasks, and to test and deploy. But before starting anything, please check that the following prerequisites are satisfied. First, your Magnolia instance must use at least the version 4.5.12. If it's not the case, please upgrade your instance to 4.5.17. It means that during the go live, you will have to deploy two distinct WAR. One, the upgrade to 4.5.17, and then the real migration to 5. If you are using Tomcat, please check that you are using at least 7.0.47. The first step is to update your project. First, update your POM file and set the Magnolia version to the latest one, which is today 5.2.3. The good news is that you don't have to specify all the version of the Magnolia dependencies. This is done automatically by Maven. You will have to update some artifact and group IDs. Now you can try to build your project. You will get some errors. Those errors are expected since some API has been deprecated. So update your code and rebuild. It's also a good idea to keep your module descriptor in line with your POM file. Now you can start. Your Magnolia instance is now running Magnolia 5, but your modules are not migrated. So you will have to enrich the version handlers. We provide different tasks to do this, to help you to do this migration. We have tasks for dialog migration that will update your dialog definition. And we have tasks for the DAM that will migrate assets from the DMS to the DAM and assets from the web pages to the DAM. Regarding the data and the automatic creation of content app, you will have to set the permission on those new content apps. Now it's time to test. Please use your production content and choose one of those test strategies. Either you could decide to crawl the website and compare the result, or to run some acceptance tests. You can do also a full manual test campaign, which will involve all your end users. Any issue? Add the use case to your test repository and go back to step 2 to enrich the version handler. Now you can finalize the migration, update your bootstraps, configuration and sample, and build your project and release to production. You are now running Magnolia 5. Congratulations. Now Samuel will give you a few inputs about what's next.
Thank you, Nicolas. So as you can see, migration is a challenging topic. So my last recommendation is don't start alone. Please contact us. Here you have our emails, so don't hesitate to call us, email us. And also don't hesitate to ask about our services. We will find a way to help you and to make you move to Magnolia 5.